I'm going to talk about how to add and subtract mixed numbers. Let's start with this one, 2 3/4 plus 3 3/10. Now what I like to do is separate out the fractions and the whole numbers. So the fractions here are 3/4 plus 3/10, and the whole numbers are 2 plus 3. Well, I know this equals 5, but let's find out what this equals to. Now you'll notice this is something we've done before, just adding fractions with unlike denominators, something we already know how to do. So I'm going to use the cross multiplication method on this one. I multiply 10 times 3 and I get 30. I multiply 4 times 3 and I get 12. I multiply 4 times 10 and I get 40. So that would be 30 plus 12 over 40. Now if I add those together, I will get 42 over 40. Now, this is an improper fraction. So we're going to change it to a mixed number. Now there is a way you can do it by dividing and then finding the quotient and the remainder and all this kind of stuff. I found that tends to confuse students, so I'm going to do it a slightly simpler way. Let's take 42 over 40. What I want to do is pull one whole out of that. So it's going to be two fractions. I'm going to have a sum of two fractions equal to 42 over 40. The first one, well, they're both going to have a denominator of 40. Now the first one is going to be 40 40ths. Now 40 40ths plus blank 40ths equals 42 40ths. Another way you can look at it is 40 plus blank equals 42. Well, that's obviously 2. Now you'll notice 40 40ths is one whole. And so I have 1 and 2 40ths. If I simplify the 2 40ths, I get 1 20th. So then I get 1 and 1 20th. So that's this side here. And 5 is still on this side. So my answer is going to be 5 plus whatever's on this side. So I have 5 plus 1 and 1 20th. Excuse me, 20th. And I get 6 and 1 20th. There I was able to add those two mixed numbers without having to do any dividing or anything like that. So now we have 5 3/4 plus 1 1/3. So I'm going to separate out the fractions again. 3/4 plus 1/3, and then the whole number, 5 plus 1. Now I'm going to use least common denominator for this one, and I'm going to use the ladder method. So I take my two denominators, 4 and 3, to figure out the least common denominator. And to do that using the ladder method, I put this in a bracket. Now 4 and 3 have no factors in common except for 1. So I'm done. I just make an L for least common denominator, multiply everything that's inside the L, and that's 12. That's my least common denominator. Now I find equivalent fractions for these two fractions. 3/4 equals blank over 12, 1/3 equals blank over 12, and 4 times 3 is 12, so I multiply the top times 3 as well, and I get 9. For this one, I have to multiply 3 times 4 to get 12, so I multiply the top times 4, and I get 4. So now I have 9 12ths and 4 12ths. And I get 13 12ths. Now, that is an improper fraction, so I'm going to do what I did over here. I'm going to bring my 13 12ths down here. Something equals 13 12ths. And I'm going to say something over 12 plus something over 12 equals 13 12ths. Now the first term is going to be 12 12ths. I just took the denominator, I copied it up into the numerator. Now I just have to look at it this way. 12 plus blank equals 13. Well, that's obviously a 1. Now I know that 12 12ths equals 1 whole. And then my fraction part is 1 12th. So 13 12ths equals 1 and 1 12th. Now here, 5 plus 1 equals 6. So now I just add these two parts together, 6 plus 1 and 1 12th, and I get 7 and 1 12th. So let's take a look at this one. 3 4/5 plus 2 3/10. So I'm going to just, I'm going to put the whole numbers up here. 3 plus 2 equals 5. I don't really need a lot of room for that, so I'm just going to focus on these fractions. 4/5 plus 3/10. I'm going to use least common denominator for this one. So I write 5 and 10, my two denominators, within a bracket. 5 and 10 are both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 1 and 2 are only divisible by 1. So I make an L for least common denominator, multiply everything in here, and my least common denominator is 10. So I find the equivalent fractions. 4/5 equals blank over 10, and 3/10 equals blank over 10. And 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 2 is 8. And this one I just have to copy over. 3/10 is equal to 3/10. So I have 8/10 plus 3/10 equals 11/10. Another improper fraction. So I'm going to write 11/10 down here. And I'm going to write two terms with the same denominator. Something over 10 plus something over 10 equals 11 over 10. Well, once again, just like in here, the first term is just going to be the denominator on top, so 10/10. So now I just look at it as 10 plus blank equals 11. Well, that's 1. And this is 1 whole, 10/10. And then my fraction part is 1/10. So 11/10 is equal to 1 1/10. So I have this part of my answer and this part of my answer. I add them together, 5 plus 1/10, and I get 6 1/10 as my answer. Now we have some where we don't end up with an improper fraction, and we have some subtraction problems as well, so we can look at those too. So 1 5/12 plus 4 1/6. Well, let's look at the whole numbers first. 1 plus 4 is 5. That's easy. Now I can focus on the fraction part. 5/12 plus 1/6. I'm going to use least common denominator. I usually use least common denominator if I can see that one of these denominators is a factor of the other one. Or, yeah, that's usually when I do it. Or if the numbers are big that are involved, I use cross multiplication if the numbers are really small, because the numbers can get really big really quickly with cross multiplication. And so if your numbers are already big, then you're going to be doing a lot more work. So I'm going to use least common denominator for this. 12 and 6 are both divisible by 6. So I get 2 and 1, and those are divisible by 1. I make an L for least common denominator. My least common denominator is 12. So I have 5/12 equals blank over 12. 1/6 equals blank over 12. Well, 5/12, that's pretty easy. It's just another 5. 6 times 2 is 12. 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 5/12 plus 2/12, and that equals 7/12. Hey, that is not an improper fraction. So I don't have to do anything more. I just take my 5 and my 7/12, I add them together, and I get 5 and 7/12. There you go. Got lucky that time. I'm going to do a subtraction problem. It works the same way. You just subtract instead of add. So I'm going to take my whole numbers, 3 minus 1, 3 and 1 right here, and subtracting, I get 2. Okay, well, I'm done with that part. Now I'm going to take 2/3 minus 1/6, and I'll do cross multiplication for this one. So 6 times 2 is 12, 3 times 1 is 3, and 3 times 6 is 18. So I have 12 minus 3 over 18, which is equal to 9 over 18. And the top is divisible by 3, the bottom is divisible by 3, so I get 3 over 6. The top is divisible by 3, the bottom is divisible by 3, and I get 1/2. So here's my whole number, here's my fraction, my answer is 2 1/2. So, with subtraction problems, you won't have an improper fraction, because you're taking stuff away, you're not adding. Okay, one more. 3 5/8 plus 5/12. Well, this doesn't have a whole number on this one. So it's just my whole number is just 3. So now my fractions are 5/8 plus 5/12. I'll use least common denominator here, 8 and 12, both divisible by 4, and I get 2 and 3. 2 and 3 are divisible by 1, so my least common denominator is 4 times 2, which is 8, times 3, which is 24. So 5/8 equals blank over 24. 5/12 equals blank over 24. 8 times 3 is 24, so I multiply the top times 3 and I get 15. 12 times 2 is 24, and so I multiply the top times 2 and I get 10. So now I have 15 24ths plus 10 24ths, and I get 25 24ths. Oh, another improper fraction. The top is bigger than the bottom. I need to change that. So I'm going to write my 25 24ths here, an equal sign. And two fractions with the denominator of 24. And the first one's going to have a numerator of 24 as well. Then I look at this, 24 plus blank equals 25. Well, that's 1. And this is 1 whole. And I get 1 and 1/24. My whole number from my original problem is here. Here's my my fraction sum, which became a mixed number, and I add them together. 3 plus 1 and 1/24 is 4, and 1/24.